Okay, good evening, everyone. Today, what we want to do in this video is talk about the post-World War One Germany and the rise of the Nazi Party. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is a U.S. history class, and it's not a European history class, so we just need to know the basics about it. And what we need to understand is that after World War One in the 1920s, German economy had really rebounded and really recovered, and the Germans had gotten rid of their Kaiser. They were no longer being ruled by a monarch, and there had been a constitution written in the German city of Weimar, and Germany was referred to as the Weimar Republic. And Germany was participating in the economic boom in the 1920s as well as anyone else. And other than other than a few economic hitches, it was in pretty good shape. But then the 1930s happened, and Germany, like all the rest of the modernized world, falls into a massive economic depression that really hurts the German economy. There's a bout of hyperinflation in which prices rise uncontrollably, and in this environment, a very small political party begins to gain support. And it's called the National Socialist Workers' Party, the German acronym being Nazi. And the Nazi Party really is one of many small political parties in Germany after the war. And it it really doesn't appear to have much of a future. But an accident of history really does occur. German army member of the German army named Adolf Hitler um, is sent to spy, for all intents and purposes, on the Nazis. And instead of spying, ends up joining the political party. And the Nazi party realizes that Hitler has this gift of speech, and he has a gift of really communicating with people, and can talk very well and understands how to communicate. And Hitler becomes the spokesman for the Nazis, and he becomes the front man. And over time, will end up taking the leadership of the Nazi party. Hitler's an interesting character because he actually wanted to be an artist of all things. He wanted to go to the art school in Vienna, excuse me, and become a painter, and is turned down several times. I challenge you to look up some of Hitler's art, and you can be the judge of it. But some of his paintings still exist today. But I digress. He becomes the leader of the Nazi party, not the founder of it. He just becomes the leader by just accident of history. And initially, he and the Nazis will attempt a military takeover of Germany. It's almost comical because he starts in Bavaria, where he thinks that the Nazis will have some support, which they do, and he will actually attempt to lead a revolt against the local Bavarian government out of a bar. And he gives this rousing, rabble rousing speech, and he attempts to start a full blown takeover of the government from Bavaria from bars called the Beer Hall Putsch. And it ends up with getting a bunch of Nazi Party members shot up by the police and the local military officials, and then Hitler being arrested, and it fails spectacularly. So Hitler learns a valuable lesson from that. You can't. I don't know if y'all can hear my kids just ran out, but anyway, y'all can. You can almost see Hitler learning. He said he learns that you have to take over the the government, not through a military takeover, but from elections. Okay. And so the Nazi party really starts to work to gain electoral support within Germany, which they do very, very well. As the depression gets worse, the Nazis begin to garner more and more votes. As the depression gets even worse, the votes for the Nazis begin to go up and up and up. And what the Nazi Party promises is economic recovery and to end the humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. And they gain more and more seats in something called the German Reichstag. Now, the German Reichstag is the German version of Congress. And the Reichstag is a parliament, and the Nazis began to get more and more seats in that parliament. And eventually, the Nazi Party gets powerful enough that Hitler becomes chancellor of Germany, prime minister, leader of Germany. And so now the Nazis have their man in the seat of power. But this being a republic, he's not all powerful. And what the Nazis need is an instant to create absolute authority under Hitler, and they get an instant. The German parliament burns down. The Reichstag building catches fire and burns down, and the Nazis blame the communists. And Hitler asked the German Reichstag, now meeting from a theater, to give him emergency powers, which they do. From there, Hitler starts to consolidate power. That is then followed by something called the Night of the Long Knives, in which Hitler begins to, in one night, eliminate most of his political rivals. Some of those political rivals, a guy named Ernst Röhm would be one of them, are actually members of the Nazi Party, people he feels like that possibly would want to take power away from him, even within his party and outside of his party. Newspaper editors, all that, all those people have to go. And these are people who are unfriendly to him. And then later on, you have Kristallnacht, which is the night of broken glass, which Hitler then turns really on the Jews. And that will be a subject for another video when we deal with the Holocaust. But once he has power, he then begins to really ratchet up a rearmament program of the German military. He also starts acting on some of his campaign promises, which is reacquiring many pieces of land that the Germans had lost after World War I, including the Rhineland, which was a kind of a demilitarized zone in between Germany, France, and Belgium. And he marches troops into there. And then he starts pushing a concept called Anschluss, which means the gathering of all the German-speaking people. And then from there, he will annex Austria and then annex the Sudetenland of Czechoslovakia and take that away from Czechoslovakia. And each one of these steps is met basically by silence from the other great European powers. You'll read about the Munich conference, where the British and the Germans, basically, and the French, mediated, and having Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, mediating all of this, will basically hand over the Sudetenland, which is this area around the edges of Czechoslovakia that's German speaking, to Hitler, and the Czechs have no choice. And so each time the Germans under Hitler make a play for power on land, the great powers around Hitler do nothing. And so we're going to leave it here. The great powers of Europe are appeasing the Germans to try to avoid a war by any means necessary. And this is important. And every time Hitler does something and there's no consequence, Hitler does something else that's even bolder. And so by appeasing, the Allies are really setting Europe up for another world war. Thank you.